Good morning. Today we're going to do our second to the last math lesson that we will be doing with fractions. For first grade, it's hard to believe we only have today and tomorrow left, and then we are finished except for some fun things. So today we're going to be doing lesson 15.3, which is titled Understand Halves and Fourths, and we've worked with equal shares and halves and fourths already, so this should not be too difficult. Okay, so our I can statement says that I can tell that more equal shares of the same whole creates smaller shares. Okay, so if there's more equal shares, that means each share gets a little bit smaller, is what they're saying there. Okay, so if we look at our green box, it says which is longer, 1/2 or 1/4 of the same. I'm sorry, it says larger, not longer. Which is larger, 1/2 or 1/4 of the same sandwich? So they want us to divide these two sandwiches, then circle the sandwich that has the larger equal shares. Larger means bigger. So we're going to put our paper right up here. And this first sandwich tells me to divide it into halves. Okay, so if I'm dividing something into halves, that means I'm going to cut it or draw a line so that I have two equal sides. Okay, so I could draw my lines vertical, I could draw my lines horizontal, or I could draw a diagonal line. Now, I don't like for things to be plain, so rather than just slicing my sandwich in half this way, I always slice my sandwiches on a diagonal. Okay, so now I have one whole that I have divided into two halves that are equal. Okay, this one says to divide into fourths. So again, I'm going to draw my diagonal line this way, and that makes it look just like this because I'm not finished. Okay, it says fourths, so that means I need 4 equal shares. So now I'm going to draw my other diagonal line this way. Okay, so now I have 4 equal shares, and I can do this because this is a square. If this were a rectangle, I couldn't do the diagonals. I would have to do straight across and up and down. Okay, so I divided one sandwich into halves. Half means 2 equal shares. I've divided the other sandwich into fourths, which means 4 equal shares. Okay. This one's going to be pretty quick today. Let's lift and turn till you see your green boxes. Okay. So now we've got some pizza. It's almost dinner time when I'm recording this message, so it's kind of making me hungry. It says these pizzas are the same size. So if you look in your first green box, you have 2 pizzas. They look just alike, same size, everything. Okay. If you look in your second green box, it says this pizza is cut, excuse me, into 4 equal shares. And you can look, we've got a slice going down and a slice going across in our pizza, which makes 1, 2, 3, 4 equal shares. And each share is 1/4 of the whole. Okay, if I took one of those slices of pizza away, I would have taken away 1/4. Okay, this pizza at the bottom is cut into 2 equal shares, and each share is 1/2 of the whole. So 1/4 looks like this. Sometimes you see fractions written like this, or sometimes you might see them written like this. Okay, and 1/2 looks like this, or you may see it sometimes written like that. Okay. So we've got fourths and halves. Okay, one piece of this pizza would be 1/4, and one piece of this pizza would be 1/2 of that whole. Okay, so if we look at our next box, it says the pizza with fourths has smaller shares. So because I took 2 pizzas that were the same size and I cut one of them into 4 equal parts or shares and one of them into 2 equal shares, my shares are smaller because I had that same size pizza divided into 4 equal parts. Okay, so the pizza with fourths has smaller shares. Okay, here's a share of 1/4 of the pizza shaded blue, and here's a share of 1/2 of a pizza shaded blue. Okay, so the pizza with halves has fewer shares. Fewer means less, okay? A pizza with fourth has 4 shares. A pizza with halves has 2 shares. So it has a fewer number of shares, and this one has smaller sized shares, right? So if we look at our do you understand, show me, it says David has a sandwich. Is half of the sandwich more or less than 1/4 of the sandwich? Explain. Okay, if you think back to what we did on the very first page, we divided those sandwiches into halves and fourths. So is half of the sandwich more or less than 1/4 of the sandwich? And you can explain that to someone at your house. Okay. All right. Let's look at our guided practice. It says to circle the shape that has more equal shares. Okay, so we're looking for which shape has more parts, okay, or equal shares. Put an X on the shape that has the larger equal shares. Okay, so if we look at our first one, we have a yellow box and a blue box. I said yellow, a blue and a yellow box. Okay, this one is divided into 4 equal shares. This one is divided into halves. So our directions again says to circle the shape that has more equal shares. So how many parts does this one have? Okay. If you said 4, you're correct. How many parts does this one have? 2. If you said 2, you're correct. Okay. So I'm going to circle the one that has more equal shares, and that's my blue one. And I'm going to put an X on my yellow one because it has the larger equal shares. Okay. All right, let's try number 2 together, and then I'll leave these 2 for you to do. Okay, so we're going to look at the 2 circles. We're going to circle the shape that has more equal shares. So which one of them has more equal shares, the orange one or the blue one? Okay, let's count. The orange one has 2. The blue one has 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is more than 2. So the one with quarters or fourths, they mean the same thing, has more equal shares. It has 4 equal shares. The one with halves has 2 equal shares that are larger. Okay, so I'll leave these 2 for you to do and have someone check it at home before you begin your assignment. Okay, and let's look at what you're going to do today. So on numbers 5, 6, and 7, you're going to solve each problem. This one says to draw a line to divide this shape into half. Okay. Number 6, shade 1/4 of this shape. So you're going to take a crayon and shade in 1/4 of that shape. Number 7, draw lines in the orange square to make smaller equal shares than the blue square. So the blue square already has 2 equal shares, and you can see what size they are. They want you to draw lines in the orange one to make smaller equal shares. Okay, so your equal shares needs to be smaller than this. Number 8, Joan cuts a rectangle into 2 equal shares, and here's the rectangle right here. So then she cuts each share in half. So she divides it into 2 equal shares. Then she takes those 2 equal shares and she divides each one of them in half. How many equal shares are there now? What are these shares called? So what do we call it after you've made the rectangle like she did? What are those shares called? Use words or pictures to explain. So you'll do it, your work down here. You can draw on this one to show the shares that she makes. And then here you can write to explain what the shares are called. I'm going to lift up and turn over, and you'll upload that page to your second page on Seesaw, the first page after the template. Okay. Number 9 says Steve wants to cut a pan of cornbread into equal shares. Will the shares be larger if he cuts the cornbread into halves or into fourths? Use the picture to help you so you can practice. You can cut it into halves and see what it looks like. You can cut it, and when I say cut it, I don't mean really cut it with your scissors, but take a pencil and draw a line like you're cutting it. You can cut it into halves and see, okay? And then you can cut it into fourths to see which one shows larger shares. And then number 10, Burke and Alicia each have a sheet of paper. Both sheets are the same size. Burke uses 1/2 of his sheet. Alicia uses 2/4 of her sheet. Alicia says that they use equal amounts of paper. Is she correct? Explain your answer, and you can draw a picture in this white space up here to help you. And then your last one, number 11, Joey has 2 circles of the same size. He cuts one into halves and the other into fourths. Which words describe the halves compare, how the halves compare to the fourths. Okay, so you'll pick the two words. Is it either the two words on A, the two words on B, the two words on C, or the two words on D that describe how the halves compare to fourths? Okay, have fun.